Hey traders, trading like it's hot, it's possible, and I'm here to show you how I do it. You ready? Let's get started.
Hello, good afternoon. It is 1 p.m. currently. Um, so basically what we're going to do is go over a top-down analysis of how I caught my play on SPX 500 today. Basically, the concept of top-down analysis is you start from your weekly, which is also considered like higher time frame. So that's like your weekly, your daily, your 4 hour, your 1 hour. You can break them down to your smaller time frames. It may be your 30 minute, 15, 5 minute, and 1 minute, right? So let's just get into it. Let's just get started. The first thing I did this morning was, of course, as you can see, um, I was on my weekly. I started on my weekly time frame. On my weekly, I could see we had a sweep here, right? And we also had a VOS, right? I would be able to see or identify is obviously between this break. I moved it. Obviously, between this area here where you see this breakup structure and this area here where you see this sell side liquidity that was swept, it obviously created this gap here. So ideally, what we need to understand, and let's just write it here. Basically, when liquidity is swept, this is liquidity being swept. So this is everything to the left. All this buy side gets swept and taken out by this candlestick here, the sellers here. It creates a gap, right? This gap also technically allows you to not necessarily predict. You kind of just want to follow the trend of the market. So if you can see here, that price broke structure, right? And then the sellers came back in to sweep this break of structure. Then that lets you know that price is getting ready to begin to buy again. And ideally, where your entry would be is here. You want to wait until that next candlestick closes above this low. So once that candlestick closes above that low, you want to say, okay, this is where I'm going to get in for my buys, right? And what are you ideally looking for? You're looking for price now to create another break of structure here, right? So what you would do is say, okay, my entry's here. I want to ride this wave up into towards these highs. Now, keep in mind, guys, this is on a weekly time frame. So it's a very big picture. Basically, do the same thing on a smaller time frame, right? Seems pretty easy, but it takes some time. So let's just go ahead and drop down, right? So now that we're on our daily, you can obviously see that the price is way down here when this play was valid. So this is no longer valid. That was just from a higher time frame, so you can grasp the concept of what I'm saying. So on a weekly, you can obviously tell that we were buying, right? On our daily, you can obviously tell that we're overall it's looking pretty bullish, right? But if you're a day trader, you have to look at it from a micro standpoint because these are really big moves. So even on a daily, this was an entire day, this was an entire day, this was an entire day. And you can see here where even though this is Friday, August 9th, and this is Monday, August 12th, you can see that price didn't even push up until Tuesday. So even if you would have got in here on Friday, price didn't really give you a great move there. You know, if you would have been playing off of the daily time, which is why most people you'll see that they're more geared towards day trading because you know you can scout and you can get in and out of your positions and just take your money compared to having to enter on higher time frames and possibly have to hold your trades longer in order for this to play out, right? Me showing you guys what it looks like on the weekly was just so you can get a concept of, and if I'm going to be on the buy side, why am I buying? If I'm going to buy, where is my target? You know what I mean? From a daily standpoint is let's mark up our zones, right? And so where I'm marking these zones up is so you can see here where we had this big, it's this sell candle, right? This giant sell candle that gave us this big buy, this big push, right? Then my other zone I marked up is this buy candle that gave us this big push down that started these big pushes down, right? Where price rejected here and price rejected there, right? So then my next zone I marked up was also here where it's this buy candle that gave us the first rejection. Now keep in mind, like I said, this is a daily time frame. So the same thing that applied to the weekly still applies here. We have to scale this down, right? So let's go ahead and try and scale this down. So this is on a daily, right? These are our daily zones. If you want to take a trade off your 4 hour time frame, you will have to wait until tap into these zones. You never want to take your trades here in the middle unless you're just, you don't want to do that. And the main reason why is because let's just say you say, okay, oh, it's buying, but let me get in here. Yes, ultimately it may buy and head up towards this zone, right? But it can also, let's just say you got in here for a buy, right? In this area. And you say, oh, I'm just gonna go ahead and buy here. It could pull back on you to this zone. It can tap back into the zone where this order block is, which we'll go over things like that later. But it can tap back into this zone here and then continue to push up, right? So you never just want to take a trade just in the middle of nowhere. Like that is not a recommendation. That is probably one of the worst things you can possibly do. And that's probably one of the easiest ways to eat up your account, right? Just taking a trade in the middle of nowhere with no confluences, no nothing, right? This is our 4 hour time, right? And this is the range we have. What we want to do now that we're in this range on the 4 hour, we can see that is also not breaking below this level here, right? And then price is also having troubles closing above this area here, right? So right now we're on a 4 hour. So this is the 1 hour. And we can see if we zoom out that price has literally been going between this range here, literally. It pushed up past this range, which was ultimately the move that I caught this morning. But then it started to wick down, and it pretty much just, once it wicked down, it came all the way down here. And then it's gradually starting to push up, right? If we go to a 30-minute, we can also just zoom this same range out. And ultimately, what you want to do on these time frames is this is where you will catch your play. So this would be your zone. This is our zone. This is our range that we're working with right now. So you can see where price tapped in this area. It started to buy, came back, started to buy, came back, and shot all the way up. My entry was around here somewhere. My entry was here in this zone somewhere, right? Um, and why did I do that was because I've seen that down here there was liquidity that got swept. So I was like, oh, okay, like I said, remember, liquidity gets swept and then ultimately to start buying, right? To fill in this gap. I've seen this gap from like a mile away. But the gap is like, if I zoom in, guys, I'm sorry, it's a lot. But the gap is here. It's this area here where price had a gap on your lower time frame that needed to be filled. So let's go back to our 1 hour, right? Because that's what we're working with. This is our zone. This is the only zone we have right now. So like I said, this was my entry here. Along the lines of that, I just seen like that a gap was to the left. And I was like, okay, well, this gap needs to be filled. Even price, you can see even up here, price was way up here, right? And then price came way down here. Now, price could go up and of course start to sell again, but in order for price to be able to do that, it has to fill in this gap that it left, right? So my entry was here. My take profit was literally like, let's do that near me because that's the color it was in mine. As you can see, like price literally flew past it. So ideally, what I did was I basically just mapped out. Like I said, I seen that like sell side liquidity had been taken. And as you can see, if we zoom out just a little bit, this is our range, but there was no break of structure happening here. So price had already kind of like started kind of like selling off here. But ultimately, like I said, for the day, as we were on our higher time frames, you can see that price obviously was in a buyer's market. So I'm like, okay, let's see if we can catch some buys this morning. And ultimately, that's just, you know, I managed risks properly. I took my position here from this range. I got in a little late. I should have really ideally taken it from this area here, but I was like, I'm just gonna go ahead and take it because ideally what you want to do is when you see price is creating different zones, right? And we had already mapped out that this was our 4 hour zone. We were supposed to wait until price taps back into this 4 hour zone, which was here, and then wait on the 5. It also tapped in because what happened was it didn't even tap all the way back into the zone. Price tapped in once, stopped right here, shot all the way up there, came back down, went up, came back down again just to continue going up. And even after price came back down and it's now making its way back up, it still has yet to actually close above this zone or this area again because you see this wick here. Price had already pretty much rejected this zone here, this 4 hour zone, which is it decided to come back to the demand zone. And now it's headed towards the supply. This is basically like how I caught my play. Like I said, I just marked up my zones here. I see that price was on an up and up in this small little area here. I was like, okay, well, I didn't get in right here at the entry, but get in like halfway through, and luckily, it pushed us all the way through where I expected. Well, I will definitely on the next go round try and make this a lot simpler. For the first time for everything. This is my first live stream, so just bear with me, y'all. I'm learning, but I'm learning and trying to get better for you guys, so I can bring you guys real great content, and hopefully, I can be a helping hand to people who start getting to as you're a beginner. I also just FYI, the link in my bio um, on my social media account. And you can always join my Eco Edge trading community. I have a support chat in there. We have signals in there that get sent out every day. And we also do these live streams every day at opening bell. Okay. So, that is it, you guys. And thanks for joining me here today. And in the meantime, in between time, stay blessed.